Welcome back to Walsall Fan TV. The joy and the pain. League action returns this Saturday for the 12:30 kickoff at home to Colchester. We're talking Colchester, so Colchester Daily Gazette writer is the one and only John Waldron. How you doing?
Afternoon, Simon. Yeah, very well. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Had an exciting night last night. We did playing Leicester. Took them all the way to penalties, and but then ultimately our penalties just weren't good enough. Their keeper was outstanding. Each one of our penalties was sort of pretty much inside the post, sort of near to the post, and he got across and saved it all three.
That's
remarkable.
It's annoying.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I don't know whether we expected to go through, but a lot of people were expecting an upset because of how Walsall have been playing, and Leicester not having the best of it. They made 10 changes, Leicester, but none of those were kids. They were all first team experience, and got plenty of minutes behind them. So wasn't an easy second string by any means. But hey ho.
No, we've had a penalty shootout ourselves in the Carabao Cup. We beat Reading on penalties in the first round, it was a good shootout for Colchester as they scored every pen, and Reading weren't so good. And but then they went out to Brentford in the second round. So that was it for this season for Cowley.
Yeah, that's it. Well, we've sort of focusing on the JPT and the FA Cup, as well as the league, of course. The league's Walsall have had a very good start. Colchester had a bit of a dodgy start, but they've sort of picked up, haven't they?
Yes, they have. 5 unbeaten now, and the win over Tranmere last Saturday was very pleasing because it was one of those games where everything went well. They got the 3 points, which is obviously the biggest thing for them. But they scored 3 really good goals, kept a clean sheet, which for Colchester United over the last few seasons has been quite a rarity. And just a really good all-round performance, actually, against a Tranmere team that had done pretty well before that in games. I know they lost at Gillingham the week before 3-0, but, Gillingham looked like a decent outfit this season. And I think, by all accounts, a couple of those goals were late on, so the scoreline was probably a bit deceptive. So everyone was expecting a really tough game. Colchester did really well. And they look like they're beginning to gel a bit now. They've had a lot of change over the summer, like a lot of clubs have. But the players that they brought in seem to be producing the goods. And one in particular, probably talk to you about him in a minute, Lyle Taylor, is actually... Yeah, he's coming up trumps a bit now. He was injured early on in the season, but now we're seeing why they were so keen to bring him in.
Yeah. The Tranmere game, they're only one of 2 teams to have beaten us this season. I know we're only 7 games in, but we've won 5, lost 2, with no draws yet. Against Tranmere, I think we, from all I understand, because I wasn't at the game, we battered them, but they got a goal and then just sat back and we couldn't break them down. So 3-0 there is very good. To be honest, away to Morecambe, home to Bromley, and away to Accrington, they're 3 teams that you'd expect to be perhaps in the lower half of the table without being unfair to them. So not getting a win out of each of those 3, that must have been a little bit of a downer.
It was a bit, especially the Morecambe game. That was the real one because they were 3-1 up Colchester with probably about 10 minutes to go against 10 men. Morecambe had a player sent off in the first half, so they've been playing against 10 men for all of the second half. Yeah. Seemingly coasting, 3-1 up, and proceeded to concede 2 late goals and draw the game against a team that before that match they hadn't scored a goal and they hadn't picked up a point. So it was a really tough ending to that game, and it felt very much like a defeat afterwards. And there was a lot of soul searching afterwards with regard to the manager and the players and where they go from there, really, because the way that they relinquished that 2-goal lead was really concerning. But to be fair to them, they got the win over MK Dons in the EFL Trophy on the Tuesday night.
Yeah, that was a good win.
Well. It was a good win. MK played, pretty strong team in that game. Mike Williamson, I'm not sure if he knew whether or not he was on the way to Carlisle at that stage, but even so, it was still a really good performance. And then they carried that on into Saturday's game against Tranmere. So it looks like they've kind of learned the lessons a little bit of what happened at Morecambe, and they're using that to sort of fuel them into producing better performances.
Yeah, the pre-season predictions had Colchester for quite good, I recall. So it was a surprise when you started the season with a bit of a wobble. But you're obviously coming good now. Danny Cowley, I think people have got a lot of confidence in him. When Walsall were looking for a manager, people were talking about Danny Cowley, and it's like, he's not going to drop back into League Two. And then he's got connection with Colchester already, though, hasn't he?
Yes, I mean, people have been speaking about Danny and Nicky Cowley coming into Colchester for a long time, actually, since really the Braintree days when they did so well to get them up into the National League and on the verge of the Football League. It didn't quite happen for whatever reason, and they went on and had a great managerial career after that at Lincoln City and so on. But it was always something that the fans have spoken about, and whenever a Colchester United managerial job came up, which was quite regularly over the last few years, the Cowleys were always mentioned. And it just so happened that when Matty Everington was sacked on January the 1st, they were coming towards the end of their sort of year out of football after leaving Portsmouth. And it just seemed the right timing for everyone, really. And, I think possibly geographically it suited them at this stage of their lives with family and stuff. And, it just worked for all parties. And I think, as you say, Colchester United fans were kind of pinching themselves, really, because they were delighted when they saw the Cowleys turn up, because, they felt obviously the Cowleys had an upward curve up to Huddersfield, Portsmouth and so on. And Colchester United had been languishing in League Two for several seasons at that point. So for them to turn up and take over, it was long overdue for a lot of fans. And it's exciting. It's still exciting. We're in sort of 9-10 months into the journey, really, and they're still bringing the same enthusiasm, the same desire to do well, and the fans are still backing them probably in the same way as they did when they first took over. So.
Financially, I think you had an influx of money, didn't you, to sort of protect your last season from going down? Because you were near the trapdoor, weren't you, at one point?
Yes, I mean, the last 4 years have been really, they've struggled. They're really worrying times for everyone connected with the club. They've been on the verge of going down, and, it left it very late last season. They were pretty much safe on the last day of the season, but even so, it wasn't mathematical. So you don't want to be doing that every year. No. The chairman and owner, Robbie Cowling, has been, fantastic, really. He's put so much money into the club over so many years now. And really it is down to him that they've been able to invest in players coming in. And I have to say as well that the academy works well, and that is because of the chairman putting money into that particular aspect of the football club. But they are producing and consistently produce young, talented players from that youth setup, and that has helped them generate funds to bring in other players. So the latest player to go was Brad Jonvien to Peterborough on deadline day. But Noah Chilvers, another academy product, has moved on, has gone up to Scotland. Sorry?
That's it's a difficult one. I think some clubs sort of, as you're saying with Colchester, sort of really developing the youth. Quite a few now, and I think Walsall, as much as they want to be developing the youth, have gone into that trap where you've got the academy where they'll be on the apprenticeship scheme effectively for 2 years. And then it's only a couple that are sort of getting through to the first team from there. And Walsall are making use of released players from sort of higher leagues. So sort of almost bypassing that sort of journey. But that's working well for Walsall at the moment.
Yes, I think that's probably the more common way of doing things for clubs at League One, League Two level is sort of taking the talent from the bigger clubs that haven't quite made it into their squads and giving them a chance at a lower league level and giving them a chance to shine, and often they do. And whereas Colchester seem to want some more, they do bring in players from bigger clubs, but also I think they like to nurture their own players through, and they'll pick up a player perhaps that's been released by a Premier League club at a younger age, give them a chance in the academy, and then they bring them in Jaden Fevrier was another example. Went to Stockport. Did very well for a year and 18 months for Colchester. So they're perhaps not at Colchester very long in the academy and in the first team, but eventually get moved on for a nice fee, and then the club reinvest that into the academy and first team squad.
Trying to balance the books always, isn't it? And the Premier League and that have got so much money. Any youngster around the age of 9, 10 that is showing some promise, they just whip them away, which is which is harsh, but that's the reality, isn't it?
Yeah, we saw that a few years ago with a lad called Todd Miller, who was picked up by Brighton and had only played one game for Colchester in the first team. Fans hardly knew anything about him, and all of a sudden he's being sold to a Premier League club. And I think that's the downside, really, that the supporters don't necessarily get a chance to get attached to these homegrown academy players. And no sooner have they sort of step foot into the first team environment, they're whipped away for, albeit a good fee usually, but
sometimes
you don't get.
Sometimes it's ahead of that as well. Sometimes it's ahead of that. Luke Pearce, I think I've got the name right, is a player that Southampton bought from Walsall. He hadn't been anywhere near the first team. He was only about 15, and he just got took straight there. Which I haven't heard anything from him since. So I think maybe Walsall got the better side of the deal, perhaps. But I mean, I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, you never really know how it's going to work out for these young players, do you?
It's a risk. The thing is, it's a risk, but they've got so much money they can take that risk, can't they? And that's
Absolutely.
The thing. Just before we get into the detail for Saturday, Connor Wilkinson, what happened with him?
Yes, Connor Wilkinson. It was a tough one for Connor, and I think it was a case of bad timing, not just for him but for Colchester United. He signed within the window in January, but the day he signed was when Colchester United made the managerial change, and Danny Cowley was appointed sort of 24 hours later, pretty much. So Connor Wilkinson was signed effectively before Danny Cowley took over, and I think the link was the head of recruitment at the time was Ross Embleton, who was Connor's manager at Leyton Orient, and so. It was very much probably a Ross Embleton signing. And then, of course, the new manager comes in with his new ideas. He actually played a big part in Colchester United's first game under Danny Cowley, where he effectively scored the equalising goal at Swindon in the 2-2 draw in the last minute, although it was later given to Brady Onvien. But he played a part in that, but really didn't really get too many opportunities last season under the Cowleys. And then, of course, in pre-season was not really given any opportunity to, and it was quite clear really that he wasn't part of their plan. So I think it was felt really for both parties that the best thing would be for Connor to move on and find a new club. But it was a shame because I think Colchester fans had seen him and what he could do for Walsall, for Leyton Orient, for other clubs, and we're looking for him to do that for Colchester, but he just didn't really fit into the way the Cowleys wanted to do things, and of course they brought their own players in even in that January window, when they were appointed anyway. So
Connor Wilkinson scored some absolutely superb goals. The one goal against Newport he scored in a 3-3 game is remarkable. Took it on his chest and then lifted it over the top of the defender with his left foot, and then volleyed it with the right and into the top corner. And I was right behind it, and I've got it on. It's on my TikTok and on my YouTube, and just unbelievable goal. But the thing with Connor Wilkinson, he wasn't really the fighter. When things weren't going well, he sort of went a bit missing. If the opposition were a bit rough, he was the first to sort of drop to the floor and whinge rather than sort of get on with it, sort of thing. So, but saying that, he did have a good time at Walsall. But we need to look forward to Saturday. There's 3 players I want to talk about. Colchester, Lyle Taylor, obviously, Samson Tavidi, and of course Jack Payne. So Lyle Taylor, 25 in 41 for Charlton, 1861 in the Championship over 2 years, and then Notts Forest on loan at the Blues, 5 in 14. He's 34, but he doesn't look it, does he?
No, he doesn't, and he's actually kept himself in really good shape. And it's a quite nice story in the sense that Danny and Nicky Cowley actually took him at Concord Rangers as a very young player. I think he'd been released perhaps by a bigger club, was out of football really, didn't have a team. They gave him a chance at Concord. He flourished for Concord Rangers. And then he earned a move to AFC Bournemouth after that, and his career took off. So he's kind of come full circle because he's back under the Cowleys now. And I don't think, I mean, we spoke to Lyle a few times now, and he said, look, I'm not saying this is going to be my last year. He was given a 1-year deal. I'm sure he'd like to carry on for as long as possible, but it's quite poetic really that, it should come full circle like this. But we're only just seeing him in Colchester United colours now because he didn't really have a good pre-season in terms of fitness. I think he picked up an injury early on, so he didn't play too many friendlies and therefore missed the start of the season. Has only just come into the team, but we can really see now the experience and the talent that he has, and he's forming a really good partnership with Samson Tavida, who you just mentioned there. So two players at opposite ends of their career at the moment.
Yeah, Taylor obviously got the 2 goals. 2 of the 3 against Tranmere, gives him 3 goals in 4 games, so that's pretty impressive. But as you say, Tavida, he is the other end. He's only 20, isn't he? Tell us about him.
Yeah.
I don't know much about him.
Yeah, he's an exciting young player, very strong, very powerful forward. Likes coming up against defenders and giving them a hard time, really. And if you're a centre half in League Two, then you're not going to be looking forward to playing against Samson because he won't give you a minute's rest. There'll be a lot of aggression in there. Often, the home fans, if he's playing at an away ground, won't take kindly to him because he'll give everything for the cause. And he's one of those players, perhaps that you love on your team, but perhaps not when you're playing for the opponents. But he's quite raw still. I think he'd be probably the first to admit that he's still got quite a bit to learn. But with someone like Lyle Taylor next to him and training alongside someone like Lyle with the career he's had, I think he's certainly going to be learning a little bit quicker because of that. And I think one of the criticisms of Samson over the last sort of couple of years is that he hasn't scored the goals to match his performances.
Yeah.
He's often put in the performances as a team player, but not had the goals to show for it. Whereas obviously he scored last Saturday against Tranmere, scored up at Morecambe. He's providing assists as well for Lyle Taylor, so he's adding that to his game. And I think he's got the potential to play at a higher level, certainly.
Excellent. For people's reference, Lyle Taylor will be wearing number 33, Tavida number 9, number 10. Is a weird one. Jack Payne. Why did MK let him go? I can't understand it.
It's a question most Colchester fans are asking as well, because he started the season really well for Col U, and he looks like he's been playing for them for years. The way he's controlling the midfield, spraying the ball around, he's clocking up assists, and he's scored a couple of goals. And it's a very good question because you think this is a sort of player that is played at a higher level. He's shown that he's good enough to play at a higher level. He's not particularly old.
Did well for them as well, didn't they?
Yeah, Huddersfield is, Lincoln. He's had a few clubs. He started off at Southend United, just down the road from Colchester. And I don't know really. I think obviously the Cowleys have got a link there with Jack, and they know him from Lincoln and stuff, and that's there, and that's the connection there. But it does beg the question, MK Dons, it sounds like he played pretty much every game for them last season. You do wonder why they allowed him to. Yeah, you think, well, build your team around someone like Jack because he's shown that he's capable of dominating midfields and he's got the talent to produce on a consistent basis, which he's shown so far for Colchester.
Yeah, I think. Would it be right in saying that without the Cowleys, you wouldn't have a chance of getting him?
I think that's probably a fair comment, and you could probably say that about several players. There's 4 or 5 in that squad there that have either played for Danny and Nicky Cowley, or they've played within a club that has got the same kind of scouting network and same connections, if you know what I mean. So someone like Matt Macy, there's a Simon Bassey link. Simon Bassey has been recruiting for Colchester. He was at Portsmouth, and even though the Cowleys weren't always with him at Portsmouth, they still probably had these players on their radar when Simon was there. So there's a lot of connections there, and I think you're right. I think that you know, as we said about Danny and Nicky earlier, I think it was quite a coup for Colchester United to get them as the managerial team, and I think that certainly has helped them attract the calibre of players that they have this summer, considering the fact that you know, they have struggled in League Two for the last 4 years. And if you're a player looking to join a club, then you probably look at, you know, where they finished in that time to see what ambition and what potential they have.
That's it. Walsall had a better finish last season, but previous to that, we've had four very poor seasons. So right down that end, sort of battling survival with the likes of yourselves. Things are looking up for Walsall, but also looking up for Colchester. What's your ambition for the season? What do you think is possible for Colchester?
I think the playoffs is certainly something they can aim towards. You know, they have the managerial team in place. They have the squad in place now. You know, they just need to be consistent. The football they've been playing has actually been really good. You know, the results probably didn't go their way. You know, the opening few weeks of the season, there was a game against Harrogate where they absolutely dominated at home. You know, Harrogate hardly had a shot. And of course, Harrogate come away with a 1-0 win. And that was a very frustrating afternoon because I think everyone could see what they were trying to do and they could see the potential in the team, but they came away empty-handed. And it was a kind of feeling that they had a lot over the last few years. So I think now we're starting to see a little bit more consistency, a little bit more structure within the team, the capability to score goals, which again has been something that has been a problem for Colchester over the last few years. And if you can get someone like Lyle Taylor scoring regularly, you know, hopefully for Colchester, if you can get 20 goals, say, in a season, then that usually, if you're a playoff chasing team, if you've got a striker scoring that amount of goals in a season, then you're going to be there or thereabouts, hopefully. So
yeah, it's going to definitely be up there. There's there's a couple of teams so far that were tipped to struggle, and they've sort of turned the pundits around. Gabriel Sutton, you probably know Gabriel Sutton, and he's very rarely wrong. But Barrow, top of the league, he predicted them to be low down, and Crewe also. Crewe won the last 4. That's there's plenty competing up there, isn't there?
It's an interesting division this year, it really is. And I'm starting to look towards the top of it for a change. I'm usually looking down the bottom. It's quite nice, really, looking at the teams that we might be competing against up there. But it's interesting. I mean, Crewe, I don't think anyone really expected Crewe to have the season they did last year. And they went and did what they did and were very lucky not to go up. And Barrow as well, in a way. I mean, Pete Wild got them playing and they were up there for a long time and they just drifted away last year. And Stephen Clements seems to have done the same. So there's something about these teams, and I think it's these League Two is such a difficult division. Really, I've you know, reported on Colchester in this division for so long, and I'm sure you feel the same. That the games are so competitive, and you know, I know when Colchester have been at Walsall over the years, it's always been a really tough game, and I don't think it's a particularly happy hunting ground for Colchester United. And these continues. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I think Isaac Hutchinson scored the winner. It was a screamer, wasn't it, last year?
Yeah, I think it was 3-1, wasn't it? I think, if I recall.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, but it was certainly
3-1. Saying that, I've just gone from memory on that, so I could be completely wrong. Walsall this season are very much different. Isaac Hutchinson sort of ran the show last season, and with him moving on, it's like 12 goals. I think 12 goals, 11 assists, I think 23 goal contributions. And it's like, how are we going to replace that kind of contribution? But on the negative side, Isaac Hutchinson, as much as he was a great player for us, he wasn't a ball winner, and he didn't really sort of close down and, he didn't win the ball, essentially. Once he was on the ball, he was okay, but it's winning the ball that was the challenge. But now we've got we're playing. I know you're playing 4-4-2, aren't you?
It does vary a bit. They've had 3 at the back and 5 at the back at times this season, but it was most recently been 4. Yeah.
Well, we're playing the 3-5-2. The middle 3, so much energy in that 3. Charlie Lakin, Jamie Jellis, and Ryan Stirk. but we've got players on the bench that can come off. Jack Earing, Ronan Mayer, that can come on with the same level of intensity. And then, of course, we've got Albert Adoma as well, former Queen's Park Rangers, former Aston Villa, Middlesbrough, Premier quality player in his senior years at 36. But such a wise head on the ball, so much calmness about him on the pitch. But yeah, the intensity in that midfield, I think that's taking teams by surprise, because it's like we don't give anybody a minute on the ball. It's like straight right at them. And I think we had to sit off Leicester a little bit more, but as much as the possession they had, we kept our shape really well. And once we're on the ball, we've got Connor Barrett. He's a right wing back that we picked up from Fylde in the National League. Previously, we had Tom Knowles playing right wing back, and it wasn't his ideal position, in fairness. But as much as he got us up the pitch and was very exciting, his final delivery was a big failing for him. But Connor Barrett, he's got 5 assists already this season. He's a massive addition to the team, and a real threat in every game. And if it wasn't for other great performances, he'd be getting man of the match every week. But I mean, we sort of a couple of years ago, we had Liam Kinsella. You'll remember him.
Yes.
He was like our default man of the match, like when everything was a bit crap. And it was like, well, we need to pick a man of the match. Who could we pick for man of the match? But now it's like, which one of these can we sort of narrow it down to man of the match? It's like so many great performances all over the pitch. It's a real joy at the minute. I found myself enjoying the pain. The joy and the pain. We're certainly enjoying the joy at the moment, despite the defeat on penalties last night. It was another great performance. So Walsall, possibly the real deal. Let's see whether they can maintain it. That's the thing. Prediction for Saturday from yourself?
I'll probably have to sit on the fence. You know, there's reason behind that as well. In that Colchester have drawn their last 2 away games at Accrington and Morecambe, so they have shown this season that they can go away from home and take something from the game, albeit in a very disappointing manner at Morecambe when they really should have won. Yeah. So they have the ability to frustrate home teams and get something out of games. But they will need to perform to their best, I think, if they're going to pick something up. But I'm going to be optimistic from a Colchester point of view and say they will pick something up. I'll say probably a 1-1 draw. 1-1
draw. The thing, I think, yeah, Walsall have been frustrated occasionally, but we've got so many options off the bench now. Against Bradford, we took the lead, an early goal. They sort of got level with basically one of the only attacks they had. And then it seemed like we were going to be dropping points. And then they bring on Albert Adoma and Danny Johnson. And Adoma got 2 perfect crosses in. The first one, straight onto DJ's head. He heads it just wide. And then a minute later, another cross, heads it into the bottom corner to take the points. So having that strength in depth is the big difference for Walsall. And I think I'm going to go for 2-1 Walsall. I think if we can stop Lyle Taylor scoring, then and Tavidi, of course, as well. Jack Payne, he's hopefully our midfield can stop him playing, which is.
Yeah, I think that's key, really. And it's interesting what you were saying there about Walsall's midfield not giving players or opposition players time on the ball, giving them no time, really, harrying them and putting them under pressure. And I think if you're going to be playing against Jack Payne, you need to be doing that. You know, the moment Jack Payne gets any time to pick a pass, then you could be in trouble. So if Walsall if they could keep him quiet, and obviously, as you say, Lyle Taylor, then there's they'll have a very good chance of winning.
Yeah, good one, John. Wish you well for the season. Obviously, we're not going to give you any favours on Saturday, but hope everything else goes well. So good one. The joy and the pain. We're loving every minute, aren't we? Thanks for watching, everybody. Cheers. Oh dear.